Joining us now, former RNC chairman and co-host of MSNBC's The Weekend, Michael Steele, and New York Times opinion columnist David French. I just want to say off the top, gentlemen, how funny is it that we are sitting here having this conversation about Democrats right now and what's going forward? But let's do it. I'm going to start with you, Michael. What's going to be coming at the Democrats from the Republicans after they dust themselves off?
All hell will break loose. This is, I mean, look, it's full-throated. This is about the ultimate power grab. Look, Project 2025 wasn't written just because they had nothing to do at Heritage. And Donald Trump didn't embrace it and brag about it because he had no plans for a second administration. So this is about everything that they can imagine, coming true. And this is that moment. Yes, J.D. Vance, VP Interruptus is not a part of the plan. But the reality of it is, on the back end of this, once this, going into this convention and coming out of it, and you've already begun to see elements of it in Pennsylvania right now. There are ads on TV against Kamala Harris with no repost or response in that market from the campaign. Understandably, given where things are with the campaign that literally just came online a few days ago, about a week ago. But that's the reality that Carville is speaking to. And I know some folks in the Democratic community are sort of poo-pooing him, saying, hey, let us have our moment. We want that excitement, that energy. Yes, he's not talking about the grassroots are out there excited and so forth. What he's saying to the party is, you've got to be able to channel that at critical moments, starting like now. And that's really what he's concerned, that channeling operation is not up to speed yet in a way that will actually put all that energy to work. That's what he's talking about. So as a chairman, I can tell you that's where my head would be right now at this stage of this newly formed campaign.
And get online, get the ads out there, get the people out there, put your message out there, define yourself, don't let them define you. Democrats. Exactly. The strategists that I've spoken to have said, David, that they are bracing for dog whistles, maybe overt attacks on race and gender. How effective is that going to be from the Republican Party? And will there be certain areas, certain demographics where it will work better?
I think the era of the dog whistle on the right is over. It's just whistles now. Yeah. So you are going to see online, especially on the online right, you are going to see racialized attacks against Kamala Harris. I just don't think there's any question about that. You've already seen it with the constant repetition of the DEI candidate talking point. The question is going to be, are they going to be able to keep that sort of confined to dark corners of the Twitterverse, or is this going to be leaking out more broadly? And time will tell. But one thing that has really stood out to me, Katie, is how flat-footed the Trump campaign was caught here. Really on two counts. They didn't have this immediate broadside to unload against Kamala Harris. And in fact, it was, as Michael was saying, it was in Pennsylvania where they're really the first, I think, what could be effective ads against Harris were being aired. So they didn't have that immediate attack against Harris ready to go. And then they seemed to be completely caught flat-footed by all of the J.D. Vance podcast appearances and all of the J.D. Vance rhetoric. And so they're on their back feet right now. And if I'm the Harris campaign, I'm trying to push the pedal to the metal as much as I can while the Trump campaign is in disarray, because it's not going to last very much longer. I mean, I'm sorry, James Carville is right. The political battle is not really even joined yet. Kamala Harris has had some advantages because of Republican mistakes, but those mistakes, you can't count on them to happen forever.
J.D. Vance, is he going to be a liability? I mean, there are all these podcast appearances. We just played some audio where he's seeming to support stopping women from traveling out of state. He's, putting a scenario out there that's kind of absurd on its face, but still the underlying issue is that wants the federal government to get involved to ban women who live in states where abortion is outlawed from going to another state. There's that. There's more talk about how he feels about IVF. There's talk about, cat women, et cetera. How much of a liability is he going to be beyond this moment right now, David?
I think he's going to be a liability for a long time, because here's a reality. The American people do not apply the normal rules, or let me just say this. Millions of Americans do not apply the normal rules of politics to Donald Trump. They apply them to everybody else, including J.D. Vance. It's one of the reasons why these attacks seem to stick, whereas if Trump had said much the same thing, it would have just been sort of washed over in all the, waves of outrage. But the normal rules apply to other politicians, and other MAGA politicians have tended to not do well compared to Donald Trump. And so he brought in a MAGA politician. It's not surprising to me at all that J.D. Vance is struggling right now, that all these attacks are sticking to him. Can I just say I feel sorry for the Democratic staffers right now who are probably in some basement somewhere listening to dozens of hours of J.D. Vance podcast appearances. It's going to be a target-rich environment with all of the rhetoric of the new right that he's adopted. And you're just going to see this happen more and more and more throughout the campaign.
So J.D. Vance is going to have to debate somebody, the VP candidate that Harris chooses. Who should that VP candidate be, Michael Steele? We've talked a lot about some Rust Belt governors. Josh Shapiro, we played him at the top saying Donald Trump should stop S-talking America. Mm-hmm. Tim Walz of Minnesota, who called Republicans weird. Mark Kelly's gone after J.D. Vance. There's been a flood of Democrats who have been trying out in public for the role of her VP.
Yeah, this is the sort of early and middle stages all at once of the beauty pageant for VP. And so now they're sort of leveling up their voices in the conversation to show, I can take a hit right to the Trump team. Look, ultimately, this is a strategic decision. It's a very important decision for this particular vice president, Kamala Harris. Like all other presidential candidates, it is the thing that sort of signals how you think and how you see the world ahead of you and who you think is going to be best aligned to help you enter this brave new world. And so for me, this kind of boils down to two particular worldviews. One, Mark Kelly, the other, Governor Shapiro, for similar reasons, but different. Pennsylvania is a big piece of this puzzle for the Democrats, and Shapiro could be very helpful there. But then you can cut some brand new ground in places like Georgia and certainly in Arizona and Nevada and even some parts of the upper Midwest with a candidate like Mark Kelly, who brings that heft of being an astronaut and certainly the story of his wonderful wife and my friend Gabby Giffords. So you've got a number of scenarios here that I can see where this boils down to a couple of choices that become very difficult. And that's when the strategery will kick in, and you try to figure out exactly which part of the chessboard you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck, which was the thinking Donald Trump team had with J.D. Vance, playing solely to the MAGA base, which was the advice of his two sons, and see how that turned out. And so that strategy does matter in the end. I
love the callback to George W. David, you're sure it should be Governor Josh Shapiro?
Look, I'm not going to be upset at a Senator Kelly pick, but I think Josh Shapiro is the better choice for a clear reason, and that is he is a very popular governor of perhaps the key swing state. So Kamala Harris can win without Arizona. It's really hard to imagine how she wins without Pennsylvania. He's very popular, and as we've seen, he's been out there making a very compelling case against Donald Trump. If the last few days have been an audition, he's really done well on the audition tapes. He's made a very clear case, and I think one thing that he's really good at doing is when he talks about sort of defending America, defending sort of the state of this country. That is the one thing that, amongst the many problems that Joe Biden had, his inability to make the case for America with a kind of eloquence and passion that, we're seeing Kamala Harris make, we've seen Josh Shapiro make. And in American politics, the side that generally tends to express the optimism about the state of the nation, hope for the future, versus the gloom and doom, America's on the downslope, we're near the end. it is that optimistic vision that tends to win. And Shapiro can make that case. I think Senator Kelly can make that case. But Shapiro makes the case from Pennsylvania. And we all know the three biggest rules of real estate: location, location, location. He's in the key location.
He is in the key location. I was also talking to a very smart top former Democratic official who told me that it seems like every 16 years this country goes for a big change, going back to the election of JFK. You can track it. And this is 16 years after Obama. Is this going to be the big change? Is it going to be Kamala Harris as the big change for this country? Michael Steele, David French, appreciate it.